have not signed all the contracts yet. And so they have not begun to do the project. Also, I'm not sure.
That's me.
Okay, all right. Also, what is going on with this is instead, because of all these delays in the projects and the contract hadn't been signed, costs are higher now. Part of it is inflation, as we know about. Another factor is the scope has gotten larger, and that has added cost to it. And finally, a third issue that this project now has to do with the financing. The way the financing works is they get $17 million per year. As anybody who's looking for a house knows, if you have a fixed payment, if interest rates go up, you can afford less. And that's what's happened. If you go back to December, when this first came, you had about $400 million of estimated revenues would have been available. Even a year ago in February, you were over 400. The most recent has been about $340 million. Now, this shows a range of some things that could happen as well. So on top of the additional cost, there's less money for this project. Okay. So the Department of Legislative Services has a recommendation about this project. We would encourage the parties to sign the contracts and that they need in order to begin this project. And so we're recommending that the $17 million is restricted until the contracts are signed. The point of this is to encourage this project to move along because it's not getting any cheaper. Okay. Second issue, this is a status update on Built to Learn. I just want to be clear that it is status. What from my perspective as the analyst for the state authority that pays for this project, the question is how much of a project are you going to get? And what's the size of the program? And what this exhibit number 5 shows is the blue is the state authority moved very quickly on this project. 2 issuances have already been made on this project. And as you can see, the blue is money in the bank. That these are bonds that have been sold and they are they're using for the projects. Now there still are 2 or 3, depends on how this project goes, more bond issuances. And what this chart shows is as interest rates increase, you get a little bit less each time. I think where the interest rates now are is about the $1.8 billion level. If they become a little less, then we get a little more, and so that kind of just shows you. This is an update. It's still early in the project. The other thing that's going to happen is as more bonds are sold, the range of possibilities is going to narrow because there'll be more money in the bank and less issuance moving forward, and also probably less. A shorter time frame means there's less that can happen with the interest rates themselves. Third issue has to do with another new program, the Sports Entertainment Facilities Financing Fund. Basically, this was built for minor league, or excuse me, this was authorized to fund minor league stadiums in the state of Maryland as they need renovation. There's a priority order now for this. The highest priority is minor league baseball teams that are affiliated with a major league team. Second would be other minor league baseball teams unaffiliated, and finally other projects that can be done. And these other projects do have to show an economic benefit to be funded. Very quickly, the 3 minor league teams in Maryland that are associated with the Orioles did have applied for these funds, and they are the Bowie Bay Sox, the Aberdeen Ironbirds, and the Delmarva Shorebirds. Last issue to talk about today has to do with the Hagerstown Stadium. This is on a much smaller scale, and I don't think quite as difficult as the first one. And there are similar issues with this as well. As I mentioned earlier, a smaller part of this is the bonds when they were sold didn't quite generate as much proceeds as the state would like to get for this project. Secondly, there is inflation also in this project, and thirdly, one of the properties acquisition costs were a little bit higher than anticipated, and so this project has been they did move forward on this very quickly on this project. So this isn't a project that's been delayed. It's just had some bad luck, so to speak, on it. And so that's we don't have any recommendation about this, but it's just I did want to bring it to the attention of the committee. As I mentioned earlier, here's our recommendation, tying up the language. If not to talk about this today, but if there is an exhibit in the back that shows all the different authorizations for the Stadium Authority. And finally, a listing of quite a bit of legislation was enacted last year. There's a listing of that, also in the analysis. And with that, I'll conclude my remarks and take questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Good job, Patrick, as always. We have Michael Friends, Executive Director, Thomas Kelso, Chairman of the Board of Directors, and Gary McQuiggan, the Maryland Stadium Authority. And Gary, I think you're the speaker.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I was just going to say thank you all very much. And you know, in the past, we've typically prepared a presentation, but in order to save time today, we just want to get right to your questions. And
Okay.
So I'm going to turn it right over to Gary.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you and good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Answering the two questions, let me start with Hagerstown. We perform this as a design build, which means that you enter construction before the design is completed. And I'd say towards the end of last year, we started to see an issue with the budget. We tried to come up with ideas to reduce the scope, but it was pretty raw bones as it was, and really would have impacted the program. So earlier this year, say in January, we saw the magnitude of the issue was about $17 million. And there is a bill in the Senate to address that issue this session. Moving to Pimlico, I understand Mr. Frank's recommendation of cutting out the 17 million if all the agreements aren't in place by this fall. I would like to say that if that occurs, then we had projected a deficit of between 160 to 350 million dollars, and that would increase because that deficit assumed that the 17 million dollars would keep coming in until the bonds were issued. But again, I do understand it's been 3 years, we haven't started design. As Mr. Frank said, the scope has increased dramatically, and we have inflation and bond pressures. We issued our final report to the legislature on January 1st of this year, which kind of gave a snapshot as to where we are. And there was a recommendation in there not to proceed into design until the major agreements are done. And one is the development agreement of how the Stadium Authority will work with MJC, Maryland Jockey Club, and Stronach. And the second is the Pimlico land transfer. So the Pimlico land transfer, the parties, which we're not involved in, are pretty far apart. The city received 94 pages of covenants and restrictions on how they can use their land after it's transferred, and they are negotiating those points. The development agreement, which is the Stadium Authority, we started out very far apart. We are getting a bit closer together, but we still have a long way to go. So the baseline recommendation was not to proceed into design until those pieces are put together, not even talking about the budget issue. And that's where we stand. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, anybody? I guess not. I guess we're good. Oh, wait a minute. Senator Benson.
I'm sorry for the lateness. My car stopped and I just got the wonderful news of how much it's going to cost. I almost had to be sent to the hospital. I want to talk a little bit, ask questions about the sports facility that's in Hagerstown. That's my hometown. Can you talk to me just a little bit about the contribution of the Washington County or the city of Hagerstown toward this effort? Could you talk to me just a little bit about?
Yep, be happy to. So when the bill passed, the stadium is 100% state funded. 100%.
So there's no contribution from the city or Washington County?
That is correct.
They don't have to contribute any money?
No.
So the governor has to contribute how much, 3 million? How much does there is an assurance from the governor that he will contribute X number of dollars for how many years?
So when the statute passed, there is a set amount of money that comes from the lottery, which allows us to issue bonds. It's the major portion of the financing of the stadium. And we can issue 20 or 30-year bonds. In this case, we issue 20-year bonds. So that amount from the lottery pays the debt service. So it's kind of a commitment of future legislatures to fund. And it's how I'd say all of our statutory projects that's how they're created.
Okay. With that being said, minority participation, do you all have any control over that?
We do, ma'am. Yeah, we are subject to the MBE law. We take it extremely seriously, and we set goals for individual contracts before the request for proposals are issued.
Okay, so if any, in the case of any of these that comes to the stadium authority, do you all have stipulated in the package or in when you distribute or agree to the amount of money that's going to be let for these projects? Do you have anything written in your contract that assures that women and minority businesses will have a certain opportunity, will have an opportunity to participate? And what is that percentage? Do you have that right off the top of your head?
I can describe the procedure and then give you an example. So when we about to do a project, and if let's say it's design services, we have a group that meets and sets those goals. If a company that is responding cannot meet those goals, they have to go through a waiver process, which is extremely rare for the stadium authority. Same for construction. I'll give you an example. The Baltimore School Program, which we have $1.1 billion committed in contracts as we're wrapping that up. We currently today have achieved 32.7% MBE achievement. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Can I point out one more thing? In the latest Governor's Office of Small Minority and Women-Owned Business Affairs report, which is for fiscal year 2021, MSA had the fourth highest percentage of MBE awards, and we had by far the largest amount of awards. Our total awards were 175 million, and the nearest of the top five had total awards of 5 million. And also, if you look at total awards, just total dollars in awards, we were fifth in the state, and of those five, we had the highest percentage. And this is the top five of 68.
And you're talking to pertain to which project?
The overall projects overall.
All
Projects
MSA
overall.
projects,
Mhm.
yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I think you're good. Thank you very much.
Senator, thank you.
Thank you.
We are probably going to have to take another minute. We are waiting for Dr. Chowdhury, the state superintendent, to come and join us. So he is testifying in another committee and should be here shortly. So we're just going to take a minute and wait for him. Is there someone here from MSDE by chance? No, thank you. Since we have a full packed afternoon, we're going to go ahead with the agency for the MSDE funding for educational organizations, and we'll let the state superintendent catch up with us when he gets here, but we just have too much going on this afternoon to sit and wait too long. So we're going to have Laura Hyde get started. Thank you.
Madam Chair, again, my name is Laura Hyde, and I am the budget analyst for the Maryland State Department of Education. This is the funding for educational organizations analysis. We're going to start on page 1, just look at the budget summary. You can see that it decreases slightly by about $1.6 million in fiscal 24. This is due to an offset between increases for Maryland School for the Blind and a decrease to the Boost program. If you look on page 6, Exhibit 3. So Maryland School for the Blind and non-public schools received federal stimulus funds as part of COVID-19 relief. And on this chart, you can see these are Maryland School for the Blind federal stimulus fund expenditures. They have had about $1 million allocated, and they have spent approximately all of it, about $982,000. And on the next page, this is Exhibit 4. This is the non-public school federal stimulus fund expenditures. So there were 3 tranches of funds for non-public schools, COVID-19 relief. The first one was a round of grants in fiscal 21 for $2.7 million called competitive innovation grants. The second round of grants was awarded in fiscal 22 and 23. That was $31 million. And then there's and that's what's represented here, those 2 grants for $33.8 million. And this is how they spent this funds. So you can see most of that was reimbursements, educational technology, cleaning supplies, PPE. And then there's a third round of grants that total about $40 million. And those are expected to be completed shortly. And DLS did recommend that the MSDA submit committee narrative to continue to update the members on this program. So if you turn to page 11, Exhibit 8. This is the proposed budget. You can see the special fund decrease for the Boost program, $2 million, a net increase for Maryland School for the Blind. That's about $353,000, and then a slight increase to the state aided institutions. State aided institutions are a grant program that's in Exhibit 9 on the next page. And this is the list of institutions of 59 this year. And this is a grant program run by MSDE in which the programs can apply for a grant for educational purposes. Now we're going to turn to page 14. That's Exhibit 10. This is Maryland School for the Blind enrollment. So the enrollment formula in the education article determines Maryland School for the Blind's annual enrollment count, which is a 4-year average to soften increases and decreases. This chart shows you that in 2024, the estimated enrollment is 354 students. And for formula funding purposes, that's 356 students. In a recent audit of MSB's data for monthly count of outreach students, they found that there was an error in fiscal 22, and that decreased their count. You can see that under 22, it says there's 51 students. The error in counting outreach students could potentially decrease the school's funding formula going forward through fiscal 27, even though MSB has reported that they have updated their enrollment data collection process. DLS recommends a committee narrative for the school to comment on this issue. And if you please turn to page 17, that is Exhibit 12. This is Maryland School for the Blind spending by category. You can see this is the increase from fiscal 23 to 24 is about $1.8 million. And their changes in personnel costs from fiscal 22 to 24 is about $7.2 million or 26%. Now we're going to turn to Exhibit 13. This is on Boost. It's on page 19. So the appropriation in fiscal 23 for Boost was $10 million. There was a remaining balance of about $500,000. So total award available for rewards for this school year was $10.5 million. MSD offered about $11 million in awards, of which 900,000 were declined, for a total of $10.1 million and a remaining balance of about $432,000. Will you please turn to page 20? This is Boost Awards. This shows you the breakdown by who qualified for the awards, with the base awards totaling about $8 million. Then there were adjusted awards, about $2.1 million, for a total amount, again, of $10.1 million. And then if you'll please turn to page 23. This is on student proficiency by subject area in the fiscal 23 budget language. MSD was required to report on Boost and non-Boost student proficiency by subject area. This shows that overall, between Boost students and non-Boost students taking English, language arts, math, and science exams from grades 3 through 12, that the difference between Boost and non-Boost students was approximately 11%. And there's additional recommendations at the bottom of this page for to restore language from the fiscal 23 budget bill and for a Boost report. This concludes my presentation, and I stand for questions.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, here is our situation for the afternoon. The SAIs have, if the money is in the budget, it is staying in the budget. So you don't need to worry about us taking that money away. If you still feel like you'd like to testify anyway, we'll give you a couple minutes to do that. Otherwise, you don't need to. And then we have several other different groups here. And if you, none of which are, is that correct?
No recommended cuts.
There are no recommended cuts in any of those budgets. So if you still feel like you would like to testify, as I call names, you can just wave and or say who you are, or you can come up and testify. I'm sorry that we're running on such a tight schedule this afternoon, but things have really gotten so crazy here that we're just kind of jammed. But that said, if you'd like to testify, you still can do that. Okay, we have Mark Potter from the Maryland Science Center. Is that good? Laura Nicolini from Best Buddies. Benham Dayanam. Okay,
Brief.
thank you.
Madam Chair and members of the subcommittee. My name is Benham Dayanim. I'm a longtime resident of Silver Spring in Montgomery County, and I currently serve as Vice President of the Jewish Community Relations Council of Greater Washington. I am here to urge continued support for the Boost program at the fiscal 2023 level. While our community is grateful for Governor Moore's decision to continue the program this coming year, we think a funding cut would do thousands of Maryland families a grave disservice. This is not a program for the affluent or even the middle class. The Boost program helps over 3,500 students across the state with an average household income of between $35,000 and $38,000. All of the participating students would have qualified for free or reduced meals had they attended public school. And Boost students are diverse, with over half identifying as persons of color. The majority of these kids are enrolled in parochial schools of all types: Catholic, Adventist, Lutheran, Jewish, Muslim, and other denominations. Every non-public school parent pays taxes to support our school's public school system, and they are without doubt an important public good, one that the JCRC fully supports. But Maryland has an interest in the education of all of its children, and public school is not the right forum for every child. Some parents, for religious, educational, or philosophical reasons, feel obligated to seek an alternative for their children. As Orthodox Jews, my wife and I felt sending our 4 kids to a Jewish parochial school was an obligation, not an option. Thankfully, we could afford to make that decision without a struggle many others cannot. Boost represents a small gesture within the context of a multi-billion-dollar budget, but a gesture that is transformational to many Maryland families. Reducing funding by $2 million seems designed solely to make a statement with no material fiscal impact, but one that will cause real harm to families who rely or seek to rely on the program. Ultimately, a budget is a statement of values. Reducing funding for Boost tells millions of Marylanders who, for whatever reason, send their children to non-public schools that their kids are not valued. I urge this committee to restore boost funding to the $10 million level and to maintain the state's commitment to all of our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah Mickey? You don't have to touch it. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair King and members of the subcommittee. My name is Sarah Mickey. I'm the Deputy Director of the Baltimore Jewish Council, which represents the Associated Jewish Community Federation of Baltimore and all of its agencies. I'm here today in support of the governor's allocation of level funding for the textbooks and technology program, but I urge the committee to reject the governor's cut from FY23 of 10 million to 8 million for the boost program, as well as the proposed phase out language. While we support fully funding our state's public schools, we recognize that public schools do not fit everyone's needs. The boost program has helped thousands of low-income children in our community and in the state of Maryland as a whole. One only has to look at the side-by-side test scores to see the difference for these kids. Boost student proficiency is significantly higher than the state average and even higher than the public school districts in which most of these students are assigned. But do not take my word for it. You will hear today from parents and students talking about the real impact that this program has on their lives. Cutting and phasing out this program has a huge impact on people. It will hurt so many kids who want an education that is best for them and their families. But level funding the program to FY23 levels will virtually have no impact on our $60+ billion state budget and the $8.8 billion public education budget. For these reasons, we ask for the boost program to be restored to the FY23 level of $10 million and that the phase out language be removed and support the governor's allocation of the textbooks and technology program. Thank you.
Thank you. Ariel Sadwin?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Rabbi Ariel Sadwin, Executive Director of Agudath Israel of Maryland, representing more than 10,000 Jewish day school students attending 30 Jewish schools across the state. And as the president of Maryland Cape, our state's non-public school coalition, representing 120,000 students. Attending these hearings for nearly the last 15 years in support of non-public school allocations, obviously I have great appreciation for the support of the textbook program, as was mentioned, over the last nearly 20 years, and the boost program over the last 6 going now 7 years. We submit testimony favorable with amendments, as my colleague just previously mentioned, that we seek the $10 million allocation of previous years, as well as the removal of any phase out language. As we've had these conversations over the years, we all know that the non-public schools that participate in these programs have all disavowed discrimination. They sign assurances saying as much. They're compliant with student assessments. We saw in the analyst's report how the assessments are coming through every year as necessary, as well as any other item that has been requested year in, year out when we come to have these conversations and a suggested modification is made. Our schools have honorably followed those guidelines. Just wanted to make one point very clear, that government funding for private education is dramatically on the rise across the country and across the world. To date, I read a study that there has never been a cut in any of these programs. Maryland should not be on the wrong side of history on this one. And we request the full funding of the program. And I thank you again for this opportunity.
Thank you. Garrett O'Day?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Good afternoon. For the record, Garrett O'Day, Deputy Director of the Maryland Catholic Conference. We represent about half of the K-12 non-public students in Maryland at our 150 Catholic schools statewide. For those of you that might be new to the committee, I wanted to highlight that every boost recipient is a free and reduced meals eligible student, and with an average household income of $36,000. That's household income. It's provided around 20,000 scholarships over the course of the program. We are a wealthy state, a state that's moving forward with education, and I fully support and did testify in support of all of what you all are doing with the blueprint and the current commission in the past. And Public school kids are, of course, in our communities too. But that environment is not right for every kid. And just read some of the testimony from the Boost Parent Coalition, who is here to testify today too as well. Some phrases like means everything for my child's success, changing his life day by day, and crucial for her future. These are just a few of the ones that stood out to me when I was looking through them, but this is characteristic of pretty much every parent I've talked to that has received Boost. These programs like Boost are in 32 states now, so Maryland is no outlier at all. Polling is very high amongst overall support, African-American support, and members of both political parties, at least over 70% for each of those when they do polling. So as far as what we're asking for, it's to maintain the $10 million of the last few years and no phase out language that's in the budget currently, which would effectively end the program for new kids. We're asking not to have this fight every year when the District of Columbia next door to us provides $20 million for their Opportunity Scholarship Program. And Pennsylvania provides now $495 million for their program. And Deep Blue, Illinois, $75 million for their program. The latter two of which the Democratic governors and both of the latter two support these programs. So we're very worried about the high school enhancements.
Can I get you to wrap it up, please?
Yeah,
Sorry.
sure. Worried about the high school enhancements that were added a couple of years ago with the cut. And so we would ask this committee to restore it to $10 million and remove the phase out language, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert Hare, Maryland School for the Blind.
Good afternoon, Madam
Just-
Chair King.
Can I
And
stop you 1 second? Just a reminder that we're not taking anything from anybody's budgets here. So just keep that in mind.
thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you all for the opportunity to speak. I know you're familiar with our mission and the range of services that we provide for our students at the school, but I want to focus on my testimony that was that I submitted in writing on the $2.7 million request that we need to maintain our compensation salary scales. There was a pay plan legislation that you all wonderfully supported in FY21 that allowed MSB to achieve a remarkable budget for the FY23 school year. With a supplemental budget appropriation and work internally, we were able to pay all of our staff competitively with Baltimore County for the first time in memory. This was life-changing for especially our lowest wage earners who received an average of a 30% increase in compensation this year. One day during recess, a paraprofessional made a beeline to me and she said, "I want to thank you personally for my raise. As a single mother, I can finally make ends meet and spend more time with my family rather than just having to work a second job." The compensation improved our recruitment efforts as well. Last year, MSB carried an average of 70 vacancies prior to this school year with our competitive pay. And that's 20% of our workforce. It was challenging to have school, let alone provide for student and staff safety. With our new compensation structure, MSB attracted an unprecedented 4,000 applications, 10 times more than any previous summer. And we've filled over 65 positions before the start of the school year. We were able to be selective and not just accept warm bodies. However, with the resulting Baltimore County negotiations of a $900,000 increase in compensation in the late fall, we had to rob Peter to pay Paul this school year to make that budget work. And by state statute, MSB must pay our certified staff, teachers.
Can I get you to wrap it up? I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am. The projected increase for the staff and the teachers and occupational therapists, et cetera, is $640,000, but our increase is only $353,000. So we urge you to consider an increase in our budget to allow us to pay staff competitively. Thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Nefertari Lee.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. I know what you said about testimony. I'll make it brief. I
We're
drove an
just-
hour
we're
and
on such a
5
tight
minutes away
schedule.
and
So
I'm going to
you-
get my 2 minutes.
You go, girl.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I thank you for hearing us today in support of this lifeline of a program. I'm Nefertari Lee and I was a former Boost recipient parent. My son Bryce had the opportunity to attend a private Catholic school on the Boost scholarship for 4 years. He's gone on to college and is thriving due to the opportunity that Boost started. When Bryce first received his scholarship, I simply wanted to know where did the money come from. and who was involved with making decisions on how those funds were allocated. I started to get the word out about Boost and help families apply and get involved. I saw the direct impact that Boost was making for these families, so that's why I'm still here after my son has graduated from high school. I'm now a parent leader within the Boost Scholarship Coalition, a coalition of thousands of parents and Boost supporters. During Bryce's freshman year, we lost my oldest son to gun violence in Baltimore City. Bryce too was lost. But Bryce's school, Calvert Hall, School for Boys, rallied around our family and made sure that we were supported and made sure Bryce had, made sure we were supported. In 2022, Bryce went on to graduate with straight A's and left his school as the first African-American soccer captain that the school had ever had. Bryce was also accepted into every college that he applied to. This is about more than education. Bryce got an excellent foundation for his future, but he also gained a sense of self-worth, a confidence in himself, and a compassion for others. He also got to see himself as a leader and was placed on a platform to promote change. These stories don't end with Bryce, but I've got to level with you. The phase out language in there that will end these opportunities for new kids, if you let that decision stand, you'll be making the wrong decision. These kids are our future. We need good public schools, but we also need good supplemental options provided through Boost as well. These two things don't have to be mutually exclusive. Get that $2 million for Boost back in there and get rid of the phase out language. And please don't cancel future success stories like Bryce. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Lottie Rivera.
Muy buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Claudia Rivera. Soy madre soltera, tengo 3 hijos y somos muy afortunados ya que tenemos el privilegio de ser aceptados para recibir la beca de Boost. Como toda madre, siempre queremos y buscamos lo mejor para nuestros hijos. Y en lo personal, siempre soñé con poder brindar una mejor educación para mis hijos. Pero no tener los recursos económicos suficientes para hacerlo se nos hace bastante difícil. Hace 6 años, por medio de familiares que me invitaron a conocer los beneficios de la educación de las escuelas católicas de San Francis International School, decidí tomar la oportunidad de aplicar. En la escuela me brindaron toda la información, en especial que tenían el programa de beca de Boost. Realmente en esos momentos lo veía casi imposible, ya que pensé que no iba a ser aceptada en mi solicitud. Lloré de felicidad cuando vi el correo que decía aceptado. En esos momentos la educación de mis hijos comenzó a dar un giro de 180 grados, ya que ellos tenían un nivel académico muy bajo y gracias a la beca de Boost que ellos obtuvieron, comenzaron y lograron dar pasos agigantados. El cambio de mis hijos comenzó desde el día 1 y hasta la fecha ha sido increíble lo que ellos han logrado. Mi hijo mayor se graduó de 8º grado de la escuela San Francis International School. Mi segundo hijo este año se graduará en el nombre de Dios. Pero aún falta mi hija y confío en Dios y a ustedes, miembros encargados que deciden en brindarnos el apoyo de la beca para que puedan seguir estudiando y graduarse de San Francis. La beca de Boost yo confío en que todo esto va a ser posible. Yo, como muchas madres y padres de familia, estamos y seguiremos agradecidos por seguir recibiendo la ayuda que nos brindan de la beca de Boost para nuestros hijos. Recuérdense que ellos son el futuro de la nación. Muchas gracias.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for having us here for your time. I just want to say Mrs. Claudia Rivera is a single parent of 3 kids, and she's very thankful for having the chance to attend Catholic schools. Thank you to Boots Scholarships. And she's asking everyone to please have the program. So it's because the kids are the future of this country.
Thank you so much. And please tell her she did a fantastic job too. And thank you for being brave enough to come here and do that testimony.
Thank you.
Okay, Walida Mukhtar.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the subcommittee. I stand here before you today not only as a school counselor and therapist at Al Huda School in College Park, Maryland, which also draws many of the students from Senator Benson's district, but also as an advocate for my students that I serve in my community. I am here to plead with you to remove the phase-out language that effectively cancels out the boost program, because we have over 100 students who qualify and will need the new to be new boost recipients. Excuse me, you could tell I'm getting over a cold. Who will need this as well. You see many of the students who look like me and come from low-income households do not often get the gift of a private school education. And as many of us know, the numerous advantages that come with a private school education, such as parental involvement, sense of belonging, and increased co-curricular activities. And opportunities, just to name a few. These privileges should not only be made possible for the children who are born into the correct socioeconomic advantages. As a school, we serve over 300 families with ranging socioeconomic statuses. Over 60% of our families are Black, minority, and or refugee families. Of our entire school population of 600 plus students, about 39% are low-income families from Lanham, Riverdale, Bowie, Silver Spring, Gaithersburg, and Germantown. I cannot tell you the number of students who come crying into my office once their parents break the news that they will not be able to afford Al Huda School for the upcoming school year, or the number of students who experience food insecurities or homelessness. But as you remember, one of the great advantages of a private education is that sense of belonging. Once students share this with us, we're able to connect them with our outreach as well as our community services department, so that they're able to get the basic needs that every human being deserves, and certainly every child deserves. Now, remember, another thing about private school education is that it has the ability to break the cycle of poverty. Let me tell you about one of our families who had multiple students graduate with us.
I hate to do this to you, but can you wrap it up pretty quick?
Yes, okay.
Thank you.
So this family was a low-income refugee family, and the father, after seeing how his older children were treated post 9/11, came to our school and requested that if his younger children can go there, although they couldn't pay regularly, but they would finally do so. Today, those students graduated from Al Huda School with honors, graduated from University of Maryland with honors, and are IT professionals, marketing professionals, nurses, and other employment opportunities out there for them. And they're out to buy the first home for their mother. So what I'm requesting from you all, that hopefully you're able to do this for all of your constituents, your families, and the children that you serve. Please take out the phase out language from the boost that will forever cancel it out. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Jenny, oops, I have Anna. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Senator Benson.
Once again, tell me where you're located. What's the name of your,
Al Huda?
what's the name of the organization? Where are you?
Al Huda School in College Park, Maryland.
I'm sorry, didn't hear.
Al Huda School in College Park, Maryland.
Oh, it's in College Park.
Yes, but it's a private school, so we get students from all over, including Lanham, Bowie, Gaithersburg, Germantown, and those areas.
Thank you.
Anna Carvajal.
Good afternoon to all. I'm grateful and honored for the opportunity to be here today to share you how the Boost program has had a major positive impact on the quality of life of so many families, including my own. In addition, and most importantly, the Boost program attributes to the quality of life of future generations by affording them the educational opportunities that will otherwise not be available to them. I'm Anna. I'm the mother of Mariana. She's 6. She's soon to be 6, and Fernanda is 1. Mariana is already reading, and she loves math. Her academic evaluations are always way above the national average. She has so much potential. And as you and any other parent, we want and look for the best educational opportunities for our children. I work a full-time job to support my family, and my struggles are real. But you and the Boost program has opened the door for my daughter and for so many other kids to get the education that offers a support system village. I'm from Nicaragua, a beautiful country in Central America that now suffers because of the dictatorship. And in this moment, a moment like this, I see myself and my mother, Lynette. She always told me to look for a yes, because it's easy to get. My mom will always encourage me to prepare myself for anything, because we never know what the future beholds for us. She made the sacrifice for me to take English classes back in my country, which are very expensive. And because I saw how she struggled for me to be there, I told her I didn't want this class anymore, that I will never leave my country, that there's no need for me to learn that language. But she insisted and continued to look for the resources to pay for my classes. And now I'm here able to express myself because of what my mom did, and to ensure I receive the education that I deserve and that she wanted me to give me all the opportunities. We are actively doing our best at home to teach and raise our kids to be kind, good, and productive members of society. We need your help in making our noble efforts go even further. Your vote to keep the Boost program and the budget is essential in helping us so many families achieve their educational goals for their children and our future. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Nice job. Jenny Pacheco. Okay, I have a Principal Donatelli and Bethel Yosef. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jean Donatelli, and I am the principal at St. Jude Regional Catholic School. I have been at St. Jude since 2000 and have been teaching and in the education field for 31.5 years. I started off my education as a teacher in the Howard County Public School System in 1992. I am here to ask you to please reverse course on the governor's 20% cut of the Boost program and eliminate the phase out, preventing new families from applying. Boost scholarships are essential to St. Jude Regional Catholic School. This year, we have 47 students that are participating in the Boost program. 12 are Hispanic, 35 Ethiopian, and on an average, we have 50 each year. So that's about 350 students that were able to attend St. Jude Regional Catholic School since the establishment of this program. Our Catholic schools, by and large, truly serve to educate low and middle income students. Thus, it's no surprise that the majority of the approximately 20,000 who received these scholarships thus far attended Maryland's Catholic schools. Many of our leaders have attended Catholic schools, many of which have served in your chambers in the General Assembly. Some of these Boost Scholarship recipients will be our future leaders. The governor is asking for 20% cut of the 10 million these kids rely on, which is like pennies compared to the 60 billion in our state budget. Therefore, I'm asking that all of you work together with the governor to restore the program to its full capacity, to eliminate the phase out language as new families continue to need Boost. Let's not do this every year. Let's keep this worthwhile program in place for years to come. Because bottom line, private or public education, every teacher, every administrator is aiming for the same outcome: to educate the future of this country, to make them stronger academically so that they can make this state a better and stronger place for all of us. Finally, I want to take this opportunity to invite all of you and the governor to St. Jude Regional Catholic School to meet the students and families that receive the Boost so that you can put a face to who the state of Maryland is helping. Thank you for allowing me to address all of you.
Thank you very much.
And this is one of my students.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Bethel Yosef and I'm in the 8th grade, and I've been a recipient of the Boost Scholarship since 2nd grade. Receiving boosts has opened so many doors for me in life. It has allowed me to attend a school where I knew I belonged and where I could get proper education and quality resources to achieve my full potential in life. My mother, an immigrant from Ethiopia, is doing everything that she can to provide my brother and I with quality education, and the Boost Scholarship has played a crucial part in helping her achieve that. Without it, we would not be able to continue our education at St. Jude Regional Catholic School. I know so many other kids who have had the same experience as my brother and I, and have been impacted greatly by the Boost Scholarship as well. The program not only provides students with the resources they need to pursue their education, but also teaches them the importance of building a better future for themselves and their families. So here am I, sitting in front of you all, asking for your support to help continue this program that has helped so many kids like me receive a quality education. Thank you for your time.
Great job. Thank you very much. Thanks for taking the time to come over. Okay, I understand the state superintendent is on his way over here, so we're going to just wait for a few minutes till he gets here. Come on up, Dr. Chowdhury. We've done our presentation and we've done all our testimony. We're just waiting for you.
Book, but here we are. All right. Good afternoon, Chair King and members of the subcommittee. With me is Justin Dayhoff, Assistant State Superintendent, the Department CFO. I'm grateful to you and your continued commitment to education, and thank you, Ms. Hyde, for your thoughtful analysis and for your clear explanation of these MSDE operated programs and services. As we begin today, I would like to take this time to thank our education partners, all school communities, public, private, and all teachers, parents, and guardians, students, caregivers, and families are working to recover from and move beyond the pandemic. The funding for educational organizations budget includes the Maryland School for the Blind Industries and Services of Maryland, state-aided institutions, and several non-public school programs. Representatives from the Maryland School for the Blind and the Blind Industries and Services of Maryland are available to address their programs. I will respond to the remainder of the analysis. The Maryland State Department of Education welcomes the opportunity to share with the subcommittee some of its success stories and to address questions raised by the analysts. This year, MSD continued with implementation of the Federal Emergency Assistance for Non-Public Schools, or EANS program. For anyone unfamiliar, the EANS program was a unique program established in the Coronavirus Rescue and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act, referred to as EANS 1, and the American Rescue Plan Act, referred to as EANS 2, that provided funding to support specific services and assistance for eligible non-public schools. This program was unique in that MSD was unable by federal law to pass funding to non-public schools. And instead, MSDE had to, where it could, procure requested services and assistance for the eligible non-public schools and retain title and ownership to those services and assistance. This provision existed in order to expand the number of eligible non-public schools by not requiring Title VI anti-discrimination provisions to apply, which would limit the number of schools eligible to receive relief. Those provisions only apply if the non-public school was a direct subgrantee of federal funds. Maryland's EANS 1 total award was about $36 million, and Maryland's EANS 2 total award was about $39 million. MSD procured services and assistance in the amounts of $33 million in EANS 1 and $14 million in EANS 2. $2.8 million in remaining EANS 1 funds, as stipulated in federal law, reverted to the Governor's Emergency Education Relief, or GEAR Fund, last fall, and Governor Hogan directed those funds to non-public schools who meet Title VI anti-discrimination provisions, as demonstrated by participation in the Maryland Non-Public School Textbook and Technology Program, which requires certain anti-discrimination assurances, ones I'll discuss in a moment. MSD provided the reversion amount of $25 million for EANS 2 last week and stands ready to proceed with administering the reverted funds now in the GEAR program as necessary. The provisions of the non-public school textbook and technology program, as prescribed annually in the budget bill, require schools to commit via signed assurances to abide by federal Title VI anti-discrimination law. This year, in addition to signed non-discrimination assurances, non-public schools also had to include specific anti-discrimination texts in their respective school handbook based on the language passed in the budget bill last year. That language likewise specifies that a given non-public school abides by provisions of Title VI and the anti-discrimination provisions of Title 26, Subtitle 7 of the Education Article of the Maryland Code. The non-public schools textbook and technology program is a special fiscal program that provides resources for textbook and technology purchases for eligible non-public schools. Funding allocations are determined using the proportion of student enrollment who qualify for free and reduced meals. Eligible non-public schools are schools that, one, hold a certificate of approval from or are registered with the State Board of Education. Two, do not charge more tuition to a participating student than the statewide average per pupil expenditure, which is calculated by MSDE to be $18,153, though there are exceptions for special education students. And three, have incorporated language into their student handbooks as required by the annotated Code of Maryland. Further, per last session's legislative mandate from House Bill 850, MSD is preparing regulations associated with having a clear process for hearing non-public school discrimination complaints. Given the new handbook language requirement in fiscal year 23, MSD wants to update the Assembly on the status of that requirement. There were 3 schools that refused to incorporate the language into their handbooks, but
Dr. Chowdhury, could I stop you just a second?
Yeah.
I think we've got your written remarks. Can we just skip to the questions?
Sure.
Yeah, and the recommendations, if you could just skip to those, that would help.
I'm gonna go to boost. We concurred with all of the recommendations, so.
You do, okay. Are there any questions? I do have a question. We have been getting phone calls. I'm sure the other members here did too, but since fall, I've been getting questions from many of the SAIs that were waiting for funding, a lot of them since the beginning of the fiscal year in July. And I'm just wondering what the situation is with that. Is everybody paid up and up to date, or where are we on that?
So happy to report, Senator, that certainly in checking before this, anybody who has an invoice out for us has been paid. We have also begun tracking both the timing of when payments come in, the request comes in to when we process the payment. We did notice that 92% of our payments were within the net 30 days throughout this year. Doesn't mean that all of them were, right? And so we are tracking this now payment by payment. So when those come in from the SAIs, we are sending those out. As far as the overall SAI timeline goes, this year was slightly different. We were adopting recommendations from the Office of Legislative Audits to increase some of our oversight of the SAI program. That report wasn't available to the SAIs this fall. It was just released a couple weeks ago, actually. We had it, right, because we were, getting our initial looks at it. And so we wanted to adopt and concur with the recommendations of OLA, which included returning to in-person site visits, making sure that we had documentation on what personnel spending was happening to make sure that SAIs weren't double dipping with this and other funds, and then to also make sure that SAIs were indeed serving eligible children from Maryland school districts. So as per the language for the SAI program, they have to serve. So we said, you've got to send us, even if it's just an email, you've got to send us some evidence that you're serving kids from multiple jurisdictions. But all of that, we do have that new process in place, and we provided one-on-one office hours for everybody. We provided drop-in technical support sessions. We continue to provide appointments. We also redid the SAI website to put everything online so everybody could access all the forms. And we gave examples, and we continue to do that because change is hard, and we recognize that. So we want to make sure that we're not impending service delivery as we transition to provide the oversight recommended by OLA.
Okay, and as a legislator that has gotten quite a lot of phone calls about all this, I know that the process has changed, that there's some different paperwork that needs to be done. Did you get there was an issue about asking for the names of employees? Has that gotten worked out?
Yes, it was one of the SAIs, and they made a budget adjustment and have since submitted and completed their grant agreement. And I believe they've also actually been paid as well.
Okay.
For that part.
Okay, but they're still needing to give the names of their employees? Is that a
Yes,
standard practice?
that is now, yes, because we need to make sure that they aren't otherwise, that they are not using other state funds to fund those same employees. So it's our mechanism to make sure they're not double dipping.
Okay. Any other questions from anybody here? Senator Benson.
Thank you very much. I know in my office, we have been very concerned about and have received a number of phone calls and texts, messages and emails regarding the Department of Disabilities that's dealing with our children with special needs. Are you all in the process of looking at that whole department to do some organizing? I don't know whether your office is receiving it, but I can tell you that is a problem, not only in Prince George's County, but I'm hearing from other parts of the state that providing services for children who have special needs or who are disabled is a problem.
Okay,
Is there any way that we can, have you all taken a look at the different departments to see how we can?
Yeah, I would have to, every case is so unique, Senator. And so I would say our early intervention and special education department is one of the high functioning departments I inherited. I can confidently say that. Now, I can't tell you all of the individual battles that happen at the school system level, one of which in Prince George's that has been longstanding this year. And I understand a parent is not quite happy, but at the end of the day, all the complaint processing and responsiveness of my department has been very clear. At the end of the day, the services don't come directly from the department. It has to come from the school system or non-public schools, depending on what the arrangement is. So I would have to look at every individual case. If you give me those, I can address that. But in terms of having to revamp that department, that is one department I would have not had to revamp. I will tell you there are many departments and subdivisions I have touched since I've arrived because they were not functioning where they need to. But on that one, we have been performing well, but we don't directly provide the services. We provide, we're the mediator or we enforce, right? And so, so if there is a violation, then we ask parents to file a state complaint. We make that very easy, but ultimately the state complaint will either be upheld or not. I understand there's several bills right now on burden of proof. So there's frustration there because ultimately the burden of proof is on the family based on how our laws are designed.
Okay, but what I will do is in my office, we will compile a packet and send it to your attention.
Got it.
Because it's just not Prince George's. We're hearing from different parts of the state that this is a problem.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks to the committee. We're all finished for today.